please welcome Judd.
We're so blessed to live where we do, and there are a lot of different ways we could spend our time on a fabulous October evening. And it is a pleasure and a joy to be amongst like-minded Democrats. And I do want to give Todd Sharp a very particular thanks, because it was he who years ago reached out to me to canvass in my county and involved me at that grassroots household level that means so much to me. I am asked by the party and campaigns at the national level to do things. For example, I've been to North Carolina twice already in this election season. I'm on my way tomorrow to go back to Iowa, and then I'll be in Wisconsin the remainder of the weekend. They're also sending me to Colorado and Virginia. But it is so wonderful to campaign at home. So thank you very much for doing. And of course, just Forrester's here. We had a ball together in Charlotte, and I so appreciate Judd being able to participate in our roll call as a delegate. It was a fabulous honor. I've gotten to do some pretty special things in my life, Kentucky basketball championships, a few 8500s here and there, and that was one of the most special nights of my life. Thank you. And we have some candidates here, and I know that you're supporting them, and a particular thanks to Maria Brewer for her courage and her guts in running. I admire you. So make sure you give her all the support you can. And that's not just financially and not just canvassing and at the polls, but the emotional and friendship support that it requires to be in the public political space, because it's tough out there. So Maria, we've got your back. So there are a lot of things about which I could visit with you tonight. I believe I am, amongst, as I said, like-minded Democrats, and I am preaching to the choir, if you will. So I prefer to just share with you a little bit of my personal narrative, how I became a Democrat in the first place, why it's so important to me to remain involved, and to talk a little bit about what I think is effective in terms of reaching out to those around us and sensitizing them to the message, or we might at this point even say the truth, of what we are about, what our president stands for, and what Barack Obama's concrete plan is to grow the middle class from the middle class out and not the top down. So, the debate last night, you heard of it? Anybody watch? I mean, the reality is Governor Romney did a very good job, and in fact I think he did the impossible, which is what their task was. He and his folks had given us a few gifts over the past few weeks, and they set the bar, stumbling on themselves pretty high for what they needed to show the American people. And when I say they did the impossible, he made it sound like he was for the little guy. Right. And they were very clever, and give credit where credit is due. They handled themselves very, very well. What surprised me was that in his opening statement, he referenced the personal narrative of some folks in our middle class who were really struggling. And it was the co-opting of those individual and personal stories that put a human face on Governor Romney. And he tried with some success, it's fairly diluted, but he tried with some success to show a linkage between his policies, doubling down on trickle-down, doubling down on the failed policies that got us in this mess in the first place, and how that is somehow or another going to help poor working people who are struggling to access the dream of our middle class. And he used those narratives twice in his opening statements. And then he used those bullet points, his professional bullet point presentation of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and gave this perception of content. Yeah. When in fact it was completely devoid of detail, although when he did deign to give detail, they were usually wrong, and his own people were immediately trying to backpedal. For example, when he was saying that people with pre-existing conditions under his plan would not be denied health care. That's patently false. So that was kind of my takeaway from it. You know, they did a good job. It is a long race. That debate is neither the begin, the middle, nor the end of this campaign. And they'll have their moment, or as I like it, as Ariana Huffington tweeted, they'll have their overreaction. And we'll just keep doing what we do, which is representing with integrity and honesty President Obama's concrete plan to move this country forward. The fact is, when our wonderful president came into office, his first order of business was triage. He had to stop the economic hemorrhaging. More women in that month lost their jobs than in our history of taking labor statistics. But under President Obama, more than 1 million women's jobs have been added to the private sector, and he has protected and saved the jobs of 400,000 teachers, nurses, and healthcare practitioners, of course, professions that are highly gendered and skewed toward women. So, I think we have an individual responsibility to learn the facts and then to share them in ways that have personal meaning. So, for example, when I went to North Carolina and I visited with a room of very special young women, I said to them, you know, they look to me for the answers. I don't have any answers, you know, I just have my own personal experience, strength, and hope. I have the courage of my convictions. I have the sense that the personal is political, and therefore the political is inherently personal. So I would always reflect it back to them and say, well, what brought you into this room? Why are you sitting here having coffee with me, talking about this election? And one woman said, because as a girl being raised in the South, I was taught I couldn't talk about sex, politics, and money. The 3 things I found out in my early 20s, I really needed to know about. And she said that she had the opportunity to buy her first home, but with the housing crash and abusive mortgage practices and the difficulty of getting a reasonable loan and even abuses on credit card contracts, that she had not been able to do that until President Obama became our president. Now she was able to have credit card reform. She was able to pay her student loans in a way that was responsible and didn't crush her. And she was able to buy her first home. And I said, there's your campaign story. That's what you need to share with your peers,